Welcome back to the channel. My name is Brad and Supercoach Pro. Today's video we're doing the round 21 Supercoach preview, vice captain options this week, and just the footy tipping if anyone's interested in footy tipping still. So looking to the side, it's looking okay. Mills is missing again thanks to Achilles soreness, so he probably doesn't play next week. I don't reckon. They'll probably rest him up for finals, which is really disappointing that I've got to try-field Bianco and look, he probably won't get a game next week if any of those players like Quain will come back into that side. So I don't think I'll make any of my prelim wins this weekend, that's for sure. I just can't see it happening with this side, especially, some big names out there are missing, like Jake Lloyd's, Briggs as well. A lot of people have him for cover. Madden's still not back. So there's a lot of players that are going to be fielding a lot of rookies. But if you have all premiums, you're going to do really well and slide up in the ranks over the next fortnight. It just depends on your VC and C option, I'd say, for the next 2 weeks. That's what will probably keep you in it if you are fielding too many rookies. So my best advice I can say with VC and C, for your VC, just go with the guy with the highest ceiling. Obviously, McRae doesn't probably have the highest ceiling out of my primos, but because he plays the earlier game against Hawthorn, you think he'd rack it up. And just in terms of rookies as well, I'd be fielding rookies that have the easiest opposition, in your opinion, on who they play. So, if they're playing Freo, I'd rather pick a rookie playing a Freo side than a rookie playing Brisbane, and etc. So that's how I'd go by it. Also, just look at their previous scores at that ground, because that's a big factor too. That's something I always look into when I'm fielding rookies, is look at how well they've scored at that venue and the opposition they're up against. Also, another little thing to look at is where they're actually named on the field. If they're on interchange, they're not going to get that first rotation, so the Supercoach points might be a little bit slower to start with, and it might mean they start quarters on the bench. So that's something I look into a lot. So, look, this is another thing you could do with your side if you're in a situation like me. You don't have Brayshaw playing because he got suspended, the Muppet. So you could have the E on Bramble, and if Bramble failed or did a hammy in the first quarter, you could go with McRae, or you could just put Bramble there and have McRae as a injury or a last minute out option. Because the risk with running the E on Bramble, and say Bramble scores 80 or 90, if I then sub Brayshaw on, right, and I take Bramble's score, and then say one of these last games, let's hypothetically say Merritt, right? Let's say Merritt is laid out. Then the Collingwood game's already played, so I don't have an emergency for Merritt. So what I'm trying to say, everyone's going to be fielding rookies, but I'd rather be safe and grab Bramble's score and have the emergency on McRae for a last minute out, rather than having nobody if Merritt or somebody like that was laid out. So that's one thing you got to really consider, is you can loophole players, but it also, the downfall on that is if there's a laid out on a Sunday and you don't have any cover to use any emergencies, then you're missing 30, 40, 50 points. Whatever rookie will score is better than 0, to be honest. So yeah, I reckon definitely pick the vice captain that has a higher ceiling in your team. So if you've got someone like the Bont, just press the VC on Bont, because you know he can go 150, 160. Tom Mitchell as well. Probably not Dangerfield this week. Josh Kelly would be a sneaky VC tonight. He normally plays pretty well against Richmond. There's not many Richmond players that are Supercoach relevant. As a Tigers fan, it's pretty obvious we don't really have any players. Even Martin in his 17 year scored not as high as someone like a Lachie Neale in his years. So, look, St Kilda, Marshall could be a sneaky pod VC against Stanley or whoever they use for Ruckman there. Not sure about Walsh against Carlton. Wines could be a good VC or C option. And then Brisbane, load up on Brisbane players. Maybe not so Lachie Neale. Maybe a Jared Lyons type could go big against them. North Melbourne, you could do a sneaky VC on Hall, but he tends to sort of go 115, so he's more consistent. Sydney, not too many Sydney players I can think off the top of my head because Jake Lloyd's out. And then you've got Melbourne. You could go Oliver because he has done 200 against Adelaide this week, which I'd actually totally forgot about. So it's kind of good talking about these things with myself in the video and then thinking about it a little bit deeper. He has gone massive. So do you take a punt on Oliver, or with his current form in the last 8 weeks, do you really bother? Something to really consider there, I guess. And then Essendon, Parrish, Merritt, those sort of players. Took Mill is a good one. I reckon Took is probably a guy I would start with next year. Everyone thinks Rao and Anderson will affect his output, but I don't think they will. And then Freo and West Coast, not too many relevant players here. I would have said Brayshaw for a sneaky C, but I don't see that happening. So look, there is a lot of options this week, a lot of good options. Surely by now you've got some loophole. I mean, I've got Brayshaw to use. So at the moment, what I'm thinking is McRae against Hawthorn. I could use the VC on Steele against the Cats, but the Cats have a pretty good midfield. And then I could try C Oliver. Look, we might go through those scores just quickly, have a look at them, and see what I should go with, or what you guys should go with as well. So we'll start with the man Steele. What's he got against the Cats? He doesn't actually score that well against the Cats. 86, 120, and 95. And what did he score? 116 against them. So maybe not Steele, but his current form says otherwise. Then you've got McRae against Hawthorn, scores okay. Has he played him this year? Surprisingly, they haven't played this year. So do you go with McRae? Oliver is probably the best in previous, scores, 205 and then 204. So maybe you know what? Maybe you go VC Oliver this week and then go for a Took Miller C or something like that. I might just talk myself into it then. Might see Oliver there. Or get in the comments if I haven't said see Oliver. Maybe just see Oliver by the looks of past. But you really want a good VC. So probably don't want Steele at GMHBA. I'd probably prefer McRae to rack up 38 disposals against Hawthorn. And if he gets 130, take it. That'd be the safer pick. Whereas Steele against the Cats, I'm not too fond of. It's a smaller ground at GMHBA. So I think that's what we'll do. We'll VC McRae into Oliver. I'll go with gut feel. I won't have a play with it if I'm working any of those days. I won't muck around on my side and not even going to consider Walsh this week. Obviously, I'm going Coleman Jones to field over Waitman. I think Coleman Jones against Shane Munford will be not a bad selection. I just don't feel like fielding Waitman against Hawthorn. I know he's a small forward and he could kick a little bag, but I'd rather Coleman Jones. I think he is, he's only had that one bad game where he hurt his calf apparently at half time and they subbed him out. But look, that's the side going into the round. I'm fielding 1, 2, 3 rookies. Hickey I didn't want to field this week. I wanted to field Reeves. Reeves didn't even get names. So that is the side going into the round. I just thought something really interesting this week. Like, a lot of teams do not have players in their side. Like, Briggs is a big one for sure. Toby Green's obviously a big one. Neil In is a big one for owners that actually have him. Murphy in for 30 points on cover if you don't have Jake Lloyd playing this week. Perfect 30 points for Murphy. Quaynor illness, I wonder what that's about. I don't think he's really relevant though. And then you look at these guys, these 2 rookies are in a fair amount of sides, so they're out too. Isaac Smith and Cameron are back in for any people that have held Cameron. Not too many to note out of the Geelong outs though. And then, look, I know people have this bloke in their side, so he's been managed, so do be aware of that, but I'm sure your yellow or red lights on your Supercoach will tell you that anyway. Franklin managed is good for us owners that do not have this bloke in the forward line because we all thought he'd go massive against North and Gold Coast in the next 2 weeks, and he hasn't. Well, he won't, hasn't. Jake Lloyd injured, not sure what the go is there, but because I have Mills, if you had both, you'd be absolutely spewing. I know a lot of people use this guy as a loop, and he's actually playing, so you absolutely got lucky with that one if you have him as a loophole. And then Brody Kemp for next year would be a good pick. He's just so injury prone though. Really annoying for Mackay owners if you have him as well. I know he's in a small amount of size, but he's been scoring really decent. Shannon Hearn injured. This is the reason why I didn't use him as my Pendlebury pick when Trelaw went down, or whoever it was. Might have even been the Geelong player Duncan before that. So this is no surprise for me. He scored really well, but he was always going to have an injury at some point of the season. And then Heppel and McGrath are back in, so that's really interesting there too. So there is a lot of ins and outs. Supercoach relevant ones. O'Brien's a massive one in the ruck. I know people have him as a pod ruckman. Brodie Smith is a really good scorer as well. So at 5 p.m, there's going to be a lot of big team news where players aren't going to be fielding F6 and D6 as well, and maybe even an M8. So if you can score about 2-4 this week, I think you're doing pretty well. And honestly, just go for the biggest VC player you have in your side. Even if they go 81 week and 160, I'd rather take a punt on a guy like that. Or a guy that has really easy opposition. So, well, that's the side going in around. A bit of a longer video today. A little bit more in depth, I guess. Footy tips before I go to. Look, I think we're very depleted. I'm going to be a little bit biased. Going to have to tip Richmond, but I wouldn't be surprised if Giants won. Dogs will win that one. Geelong, you'd think. Port Adelaide, Lions, Sydney, Melbourne. Going for an upset. I reckon Gold Coast will win here. And West Coast will win that one. They always win the Derby, don't they? Anyway, that's the side going into the week. Any questions, leave them in the comments below. Last chance to see my phone is between 5 and 5:30 on Arvo shift. So look, I'll be checking the Richmond scores at half time if I get a break at 8:30ish or whatnot, and hopefully we get the win. And hopefully your Supercoach side gets the win for your finals. Anyway, I think that's enough for me. I've ranted a bit too long, so have a good weekend, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.